In this video segment for the Grandview Build House for Homes project, we're going to go through the steps in building the foundation and the garage, setting up the wall types, defining the garage floor height, and look at the framing, posts, and beams required. Here's a look at the completed foundation and garage floor. On the back of the foundation, you can see we've raised up the walls, also on the side. If I go into the full camera view, you can take a look, if we rotate around the side of the house, how the terrain kind of slopes around, and that's going to save quite a bit of excavation. The builder had suggested we've done this, and we worked with the architect to come up with a detail on this wall. You can see how the wall stacks with the outside retention and foundation, and then we have a support wall that will then align with the main framed wall below it. In the overall section view, we're going to create a crawl space under the main house, and then the garage will just have the slab foundation. Let's go into the plan and go through the steps to create this. I have the plan open from the previous video where we built the second floor, and in this segment we're going to go through and we're going to build our foundation. Choose that from the menu, and I'm going to go ahead and couple things. One, I'm going to hang the floor framing inside the foundation walls. The stem wall height, I'm going to set that to 36 inches, which includes an 1.5 inch sill plate. So let's go ahead and click the build button. And again, the program asks you if you want to drive that from the main floor, which we will. And you can see the foundation has built. Let's go in and take a section view and make a few changes here. I'm going to use the back clip cross-section camera, and I'm just going to cut a section through here so we can see what we've got. Now, using the section view, I'm going to start with the garage, and what I want to do is I want to make an adjustment inside of the garage. I'm going to click inside the garage room. This is on the foundation level. I'm going to go ahead and set the stem wall to be 24 inches, and then we'll also come in here and set the floor to be 28 inches. And you can see the preview in the diagram how that lays out in here. And then I'm also going to set the stem wall to be 28 inches. We'll go ahead and close that dialog, and you can see the update in here that's made that change. Next, when we built our foundation, the default was to have a stem wall of 37 inches. You can see that this stem wall is actually much larger than that, and that's because it's pushed it down 24 inches because of the garage being lowered that 24 inches. If I click inside of the main crawl space area and I come in here, you'll see the stem wall at 61 inches instead of 37. So if I subtract 24 inches, you can see that the math on that actually is 37, and we'll adjust the stem wall accordingly. And you can see the update in the preview. Let me toggle over to the 3D view, and you can see the changes that it's raised up the floor in the garage, and it's also lowered the stem wall back in the main crawl space area. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to take these back walls and I want to adjust the height of them so they can also be a retainer wall for the terrain. Now to pull that wall up, the first thing I actually am going to do is I need to pull that foundation wall out so that it's past the upper stick framed wall right in this area. And so I'm going to use my dimension tool to do that. And you can see in the cross section of the foundation we just built, our foundation footing wall is right below that wall. So I'm going to need to pull that out a certain distance to make sure that it's on the outside of that wall. In the plan view, let's go ahead and use the automatic dimension tool and make the appropriate adjustments. Now this very back wall right in here, the engineer, when I built the foundation, we built it with 6-inch stem walls. This back wall right in here needs to be an 8-inch stem wall. So I'm going to change the wall type in here to an 8-inch stem wall. And then on the foundation panel here, I'm going to go ahead and set the footing thickness to 24 inches. 10 inches in height. These values are coming from our structural engineer that helped on the design. And then there is an offset for the footing, and I'm going to go ahead and change that. You'll be able to see that when we take a elevation view once we add our interior wall that stacks underneath. And then on the top of this wall, we're not going to need a sill plate, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And then by pressing F9 on the keyboard, you'll be able to see where that wall is stacking. And I need to pull that out. So I'm going to highlight the wall. I'm going to come in here on the dimension, and I'm going to move that out 9 inches. And now you can see, if I go back into the section view, what we're looking at. So by moving that wall out 9 inches, we're on the outside, and that 3/4 inch offset right in here is going to allow the sheathing to come down right in between that wall. The next step before I pull that foundation retaining wall up is I'm going to create our step wall in here that supports the wall below, and I'm also going to move the rest of the walls out. So back in the floor plan view, the side walls over here need to come out so they can also support that. So I'm going to go ahead and make the adjustments on the dimensions in here, and I'm going to highlight each one of these walls using my shift on the keyboard. I'm going to highlight the dimension, and I'm going to add 7 inches to pull that out. A little bit less than the other one because these are only 6-inch walls instead of the 9 inches we adjusted the previous wall. So now I've moved those out past the walls above it, and now I can go in and make some adjustments to those walls. A couple more changes over here. I want to adjust this wall. I'm going to highlight the dimension, and again I'll just add 7 inches to pull that wall out as well. Now I'm going to come in here in a little bit and I'm going to adjust this wall in here below the garage, but in the meantime let's go ahead and press F9 on the keyboard. I'm going to draw the wall that will support below here. Now to draw that wall, some people call that a cripple wall. I'm going to use an interior wall, and let's just come across here and draw a wall in here, and then we'll position it into place. If I change the wall type by opening it up, going into the wall types, I have a foundation cripple 4 wall. All that really consists of is one layer, which is a 2x4. And then I've done the fill with a light brown in there, and now I can kind of zoom in here and position that exactly where I want. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and bump that wall right against the outside of that wall. Now normally what you'd want is you're going to want an air gap in here, so let's kind of zoom in here, and I'm going to pull this down 1 inch. So I'm just going to grab the wall move handle here, pull it down, press the tab key, and I'm going to just go ahead and move it 1 inch here. That's going to give me a 1 inch gap. Now while that interior wall, that cripple wall that we drew was selected, I can actually come down here in the bottom section of the edit menu, set that as a default, and now when I use the interior wall tool, it will actually draw those walls as a cripple as we come in here. Now before I finish drawing those, if I toggle on my reference display layer, I actually need to make a few changes in here to the alignment. And I'm going to go ahead and come in here. We'll set that dimension to 11'4", and then I'll make a few more adjustments here. In positioning the cripple wall, the move handle's on the outside of the wall. What I'll do is I'll actually use the flip layers. You'll see that in the lower edit menu. Reverse layers. I can snap that to the wall over here. Once it's snapped to the wall, then I can just come in here, press the tab key, move it out 1 inch, and then you have to zoom in here a little bit and you can reconnect those wall connections. Just pull that back, make that adjustment. I'm going to speed through this process and go ahead and draw the rest of the walls, and you can just kind of watch as I do this. Now that I have all of those cripple walls in place, I do need to make a few adjustments to some of the foundation walls. In the plan view, I've put all those walls on a cripple layer, and I want to select all of the foundation walls and make adjustments to the foundation footing width and the stem wall. The only one I've changed so far is this back wall at 8 inches. Let me turn off that layer for the cripple foundation walls. I'll open up the layer set, turn off those walls. Once they're turned off, I can come in here and select all of the walls with the exception of this back wall. I'm just going to use my foundation wall. I'm going to come in here and just draw a marquee around all of the walls, and then I'll just press the shift key to deselect this back wall. With all of those walls selected, notice I don't have the front walls. I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of changes. Now I'm going to change the footing to 18 inches, and then I'm going to set the offset of that footing, since it has a cripple wall on it, to 2 1/4 inches. And again, these dimensions come from the structural engineer who helped us in the design. In this rendering of the foundation, I'm actually going to open up the side foundation walls over here and remove the sill plate off the top. I already did that on the back wall. I'll also do it on the side wall. In the floor plan view, I'm just going to hold the shift key down and select those walls, and then I will mark them underneath the foundation panel and remove the sill plate. Next, I'm going to go ahead and pull these walls up. If I select the wall, you can actually pull it up. It's going to be more accurate to do this in an elevation view. I'm just going to come in here with a back clipped elevation view and pull this right through here. Once the elevation comes up, I can click on that lower foundation wall, highlight the dimension. In this case, I'm going to set it to be 6'5". That way it's exactly positioned. And I'll go ahead and do that on the other walls as well. Now on this wall that borders the garage, if I rotate around a little bit, I'm going to take this wall on this side and I'm going to create a notch on it like I've done here in the rendering using the brake tool, and I'm going to just pull it up a little ways. And again, this is just following the terrain. in the floor plan view with the wall highlighted, I'm just going to use the brake tool. I'm going to come in here and create that notch, and then using the back clip cross-section view, let's go ahead and generate the view. In the section view then, I can just pull this up. I'm going to actually set that dimension at 4'2", so put in 4'2". Now once I have that up at 4'2" and I deselect it, you can't see the foundation wall, and that's because this wall up here. I'm going to go ahead and create the same type of break in here. Let's go ahead and use the brake tool in here. We'll create a notch, and then I'll go ahead and pull that up to the top of that wall. And then the final thing is I'm going to step this foundation over here so that it actually goes below the frost level, and we'll go ahead and pull this down so that's down in this area right in here. And then finally I'll go ahead and align that wall over in this area. This allows me to step the wall down the terrain and also get it below the frost line. I'll do the same thing on the front of the garage area. Alright, now you can see the garage is now stepped down. Now the next thing we want to do with the foundation is create our framing. And as you can see in this completed view, if I rotate down a little bit, I need to add one more cripple wall right in this area. And I'm also going to make sure that the bearing line is over that cripple wall so that I can lap those I-joists over the top of it. To extend that cripple wall, I'll just grab the existing one in front of the garage, extend it over, and then I'm going to use the brake tool and create a notch in here because I need to put a footing underneath of here. And I'll go ahead and open that up and mark that it's a foundation wall. In the preview you can see that it puts a footing underneath of that, and if I want to reframe that wall, let's just go ahead and click the framing of it and it will reframe it. You can see that back in a 3D view. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build the framing inside of the floor, and if you take a look at the completed foundation, there is a crawl space access right in this area right here. And what I've done is underneath the stairway is created a small room and called it open to below. And all that does is it saves me time for doing any of the blocking in here. That access panel is going to be on floor 1 underneath the stairway. If I turn off the stairs, let's go ahead and highlight the stairs and we'll just turn that off. And I'm going to use my wall tool, and let's use what's called a room divider. And I'm just going to come in here, roughly use this room divider to create an open below room. I'm not going to really worry too much about the dimensions other than I want to show you how that I've done that. Let's go ahead and now select the room, and under the general panel we can choose that it's open to below. That way when we build the framing for the floor, it will create that access panel for us. The plan is at the point where we're ready to build the framing for the foundation. Before I do that, I'm going to turn the framing foundation layer on that I want to use. I've set up one of those layer sets, and under the build menu, let's go down to framing, build framing, and I'm just going to turn on the automatic framing for the floor and the ceiling. So you see it in 2D, and in the 3D view you can see all of the I-joists that were built. Those are 14-inch I-joists because of the platform we've defined. If I zoom in, you can see that underneath that cripple wall there's no lapping or butting of the joists. And what I need to do is draw a bearing line. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and go into my plan view, and underneath the build menu there is a bearing line underneath framing, and I'm just going to select that line. I'm going to come over here and draw a bearing line right over the top of that wall. You can see that it automatically laps those joists as I draw that, and we'll draw one more right in this area, and then we'll draw one more right up here over the top of this wall as well. You can see back in the 3D view what it's done is it's actually now lapped those joists, those I-joists. If I zoom out a little bit, you can see that it also created the cutout for the crawl space access because we use that open below room. If you turn off the automatic framing, you can go back in there and delete it. Once you turn off your automatic framing, you can go into and actually change those sill plates. If you want to go into your library, you can come in here and search for pressure treated materials. Now the next step I want to do is I want to go through and add a couple of post supports in the foundation. If you take a look at what I've done in the completed one here, there are a few point loads that the engineer called out, and these require extra supports. I've got a couple in there. Structural engineering has called for a post with a footing underneath the stairway. If I press F9 on the keyboard, you can see where that stairway is above, and using the tool underneath your build framing a post with footing. I'm just going to kind of zoom in and get right on that intersection and click that post with footing. Once you click that, you can actually highlight the footing itself. You can specify what the radius is. I'm going to change that to 12, and you can see what the thickness is for that as well. Once I have that set, I'm going to go ahead and center it back in over that post, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a copy of this using Control-C on the keyboard, and it calls for one more over in this area right here, and I'm just going to paste it in that position as well. In the 3D view, you can see where that has been positioned. I can just zoom in a little bit and you can see where those posts are. Again, if you want to use your material eyedropper, we'll pick up the material and apply that onto those posts so you can get treated posts. You can see that that post came in a little bit high, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull that down. Probably use a section view to get that exactly where it needs to be positioned. You can also click on those posts and specify the dimensions of it. Now let me zoom out. The next thing I want to do in this area is create our footings and pier foundations that will support the entryway. To create this footing and this pier foundation, in the program you're going to find both a footing or a slab with a pier, which you can actually place in a plan view, but they require walls, and in this case I don't have walls above that. What I'm going to do is actually use that post with footing that we placed underneath the framing member. Now I've marked in my plan view where those supports need to be, and underneath the post with footing tool, let's go ahead and place that. We'll snap it onto that area. Let's zoom in and make some changes. First on the footing, and make some changes in here. First of all, let's set the thickness of it to be 8 inches, and we'll also set the elevation of it to be 38. And I'm going to change it to be square. I'll adjust the dimensions after we close this, setting this to be 4 feet by 3 feet. So we'll set it in that direction and 3 feet in this direction. And then I'll just bring it back and snap it on to that snap point. And then for the pier itself, let's go ahead and open that up, and I'm going to change that to be round, and we'll set the dimension of that to be 18 inches. Now let's go into the 3D view and make the necessary adjustments. First of all, let's take that pier and pull it up to the top of the stem wall. Again, it's more precise to do this in an elevation view. We'll set that on top of the slab, and then I'll use the material eyedropper and change that to concrete. And then back in the floor plan view, we can select both of these objects, and I can do a copy and reflect. Once the objects are selected, use the copy tool, reflect around the doorway that we have above, and it will place that in that view right there. Back in the 3D view, you can see that we now have those supports, and again, it was just a little quicker way than using a slab and maybe a cylinder or a solid to create those supports for the entryway. If you want to take a closer look at our foundation plan, you can look at page 6 on the Grandview plan. You can download those from the website. Take a look at how we've done the foundation layout on page 6. And then on page 12 is the framing for that. Well, that wraps up the foundation portion of the Grandview Build Project. We went through and created the foundation, put in our cripple walls. We raised up the walls and repositioned them for the terrain retaining as well as the foundation. Defined the different wall types. We went in and adjusted the garage floor height, put in our framing information, and then added some posts. Thanks for watching the video.